Hey guys, and welcome to IELTS Ultimate Speaking Guide Part 2. Just in case you are wondering who the person is speaking to you right now, there I am, your teacher today. It's me, John. Welcome aboard. Okay, here we go. Here's what the card will look like in Part 2. The Part 2 is called the long-term question. Describe a tourist attraction you have visited. The card suggests that you say what it is, where it is located, what can you do there, and explain what your impression of it was. Now here's the fun part. After you have read the card, you have 60 seconds to take notes. Be aware that 60 seconds is a very short time, especially with the pressure of taking the test. This is how I like to take notes during the 60 seconds preparation time. Take a minute and look at the card. I chose the topic Amsterdam Canal District. I put it in the center of my paper, and then I wrote notes around it. Historical part of the city, take photos, Holland, 15 minutes from the train station, peaceful, best memory of trip. Now your 60 seconds time is up, so you must begin speaking. I would like to tell you about the Amsterdam Canal District, which is a tourist attraction I have been to. Last year I went to Amsterdam and visited the Amsterdam Canal District, which is basically the historical part of the city. The buildings were constructed during the years 1500 and 1600, when the city was prospering. The houses are rather peculiar because they are narrow and tall, on average 4 or 5 floors. There are roughly 5 or 6 canals, and they form a grid in the center of the city. This attraction is located in Europe, in the capital of the Netherlands, in Amsterdam. It's a large area of the city that could take 10 hours to walk completely. The center of the city is the train station. From there, a 15-minute walk will take you to the first canal. There are tons of things you can do to really appreciate the canals. The cheapest is to do a self-guided walking tour or join a free walking tour. However, the guide expects a tip at the end of the hour, at the end of the tour also, so it's technically not free. The first couple of times I walked this district, I got completely lost, and that was the best part of this attraction. Even though you get lost, you are still in the central part of the city, as long as you see a canal. When you go, be sure to bring a camera because it's a great place to take pics. Besides walking, this area has a bunch of great shops, although quite touristy. You can pick up any souvenir you could possibly imagine. Furthermore, if you are feeling lazy, you can take a canal boat tour. There are a bunch of different options, but the most common will set you back 15 euros and an hour and a half. On these boats, you can listen to an audio guide in different languages about the history of the Canal District. It's rather fascinating. Lastly, I found this district to be the most peaceful part of the city and my trip. Amsterdam can be quite chaotic with all the tourists that visit every day, 365 days a year. The 400-euro building reflects off of the canals and creates a real surreal picture that you will never see again anywhere in the world. That's all. Tips. Use an introduction sentence in Part 2. This is the most basic example of an introduction sentence you can use. I would like to tell you about a tourist attraction I have been to. This is a great first sentence. I usually tell my students that this is the sentence you always need to speak as your first sentence in Part 1. So if you are new to the speaking test and speaking test format, in part 2, you should always say, I would like to tell you about something, something, something. Now, if you are a higher level student or you have taken the test already and did not get the score you needed, I have different advice for you. You need to have a dynamic introduction sentence. What does a dynamic introduction sentence mean? Very simple. It means you need to use a relative clause. If you do not know what relative clause is, very simple. Just Google it. It means to put the words which is, who is, that is, in the middle of your sentence. You should definitely use relative clause in your introduction sentence. For example, I would like to tell you about Amsterdam canals, which are a tourist attraction I enjoyed. Now, if you really want a 7-band score or higher on the IELTS speaking test, you should use these types of sentences on all parts on the speaking test. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Using these kinds of sentences that use relative clauses are an example of more complex sentence structure, which will get you higher points. Okay, in part 2, they give you 60 seconds to prepare and 2 minutes to speak. In the official IELTS material, it says to speak for 1 or 2 minutes. I say speak for 2 full minutes. However, if you only speak 1 minute, then you will have no chance at a high score like 6, 7, or even 8. So make sure you speak for the full 2 minutes. If you speak longer, then the examiner will be able to see how good your vocabulary is. Remember, students, vocabulary is worth 25% of your overall test score. This means you should include phrasal verbs such as hang out, pick up, come across as. Also, you should speak idioms. Some examples of idioms are once in a blue moon, over the moon, pricey, and for ages. Besides idioms and phrasal verbs, you should use higher level vocabulary words such as particularly, splendid, impeccable, primarily, well-known, entrepreneur, picturesque. These kind of words really stand out to the examiner, so be sure to use them. Now we move on to our next part 2 speaking tip. Be careful of tense. You might not know this, but the examiners usually only listen to grammar tense mistakes. For example, past, present, future in part 2. Why? Because part 2 is usually a past tense question. I'm not saying it's always a past tense question, but it usually is. So be careful of tense. For example, if they ask you, tell me something interesting you did last year, and you say last year I go to America, and you use the wrong tense too many times, it will really negatively affect your score. So pay attention to your verb tense. Instead, say, last year I went to America. The last tip we have today is very, very simple. When you are finished speaking, just say the phrase, that's all. It's very important to tell the examiner, that's all, when you are finished. Why? Because if you finish speaking in part 2 without notifying the examiner, they may think you are pausing and unable to think of what to say next. So let them know you are finished and don't forget to smile. That's all. Congratulations, you are finished. You learned some important easy tips today for part 2. First, use an introduction sentence. Second, speak for 2 full minutes. 1 minute is acceptable, but you will only get a band 5 answer. Speaking for 2 minutes gives you a chance to show off your vocabulary, which is 25% of your speaking score. 3, be careful of the tense you use. Question 2 is usually a past tense question, but not always. If it's a question asking you about your experience with something, then you will have to use past tense verbs. 4, when you finish, say that's all. Very easy. And the final tip, smile. That's right. When you are speaking, you should smile so you look more confident. Thank you so much for watching this video on the Ultimate Guide to Speaking, Part 2. I have an excellent website and also an awesome blog. Just search online for www.improveyourspeakingscore.com. The blog gets updated twice a week. And finally, if you need to contact me, I will be in my Facebook group called Improve Your Speaking Score Community. Be sure to search for that. It's awesome. I'm online in that group every day and we have hundreds and hundreds of members. Thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please click like or subscribe to my channel. Also, if you enjoyed the video, you should check out my other resources. Thank you.